Greetings, good rising, and great awakening. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Let's see if you can hear me. Let's see if we can get any, let's see, looks like you're on the phone and the computer, so that's good. Okay, yeah. Sometimes when you're on this system, you have to use the phone and the computer. So it looks like you've got that going on. If you could just let me know that you can hear me in the chat room or just speaking. See, there's a little phone icon to the top of the screen. If you click on that, you should be able to connect with the call. All right, very good. Okay, then let us begin. So welcome once again to the KemeTones Self-Care webinar series. We are focusing on the healing from post-traumatic slave syndrome and how we can apply KemeTones principles to this practice. Here we have this little GIF about using sound to eliminate obstacles, opening the way to freedom. And last week I recited some poetry about the artwork in this slide, which in this slide there's two birds that have just been released from a cage. The cage is open and they're flying free, and last week we recited I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings, trying to learn what does the bird sing to open the cage. So we're doing this series on healing post-traumatic slave syndrome with KemeTones, and this series is based on the work of Dr. Joy DeGruy and her book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and we're using the study guide for this series. In the study guide, she points out 10 steps for healing from post-traumatic slave syndrome, which she calls Sankofa steps. So in this series, we're learning about applying these steps for our self-care and helping others. The idea is that when we help ourselves, we can help our family, we can help our neighborhood, our community, our nation, and the planet. And we start by taking care of ourselves. We are using KemeTones Cosmic Sound Healing, which uses acutonics tuning forks. Acutonics is similar to acupuncture, only we use sound instead of needles. Each tuning fork is tuned to a different planetary frequency based on Kepler's calculations. And also that means that each tuning fork is tuned to a different cosmic force, Neteru or Orisha. And we use KemeTones and different sound healing techniques for eliminating blocks in our system. If we have a symptom of pain, illness, or disease, that means there's a block in our flow of energy, our blood flow, the flow of the water in our system. And so we use the sound to eliminate the block. Acupuncture and acupressure have been successfully used in treating post-traumatic stress disorder, and acutonics as well. And so that's where I got the idea to use KemeTones for healing post-traumatic slave syndrome. And a little bit about myself. Here's a picture of me when I was 6 years old in Chicago. And it's kind of cool because you can see my mother's reflection in the window. She's the one taking the picture. And I was born in Chicago and grew up there. My family was a family of entrepreneurs. And I grew up in Chicago, and I went to college in Overland, Ohio, got a degree in physics there. I went to UT Austin to study astronomy, get a PhD in astronomy. And I was sexually assaulted and dropped out. Then I became a homeschooling mom with a reggae band and a yoga practice. Ran a few food co-ops, homeschooled my daughters, and recently, within the past decade, got into Kemet and acutonics. And I also have a reggae band, and using all of my passions, gifts, and skills in one. I like to travel around the world with my music and sound healing. And that's what I'm doing. I'm manifesting my vision. And KemeTones is a huge part of this. The step for tonight, the Sankofa step number 3, is tell your story. Preserve your memories for those to come. Leaving your experience to help guide the next generation. Every KemeTones session begins with a horoscope, which is a celestial or astrological analysis of the planetary motions. Horoscopes is based on the 13-month sidereal Kemetic astrology system, and the 13th sign or constellation is the sign of Ophiuchus, which in the Kemetic system is known as Imhotep. This is the only constellation in the sky that is based on the life of an actual human being. And for more information, you can visit tachia.com/horoscopes. The chart for this evening is taken from astrology13.com. If there's any questions. Anytime you have any questions, you should be able to just unmute yourself and speak, or in the chat room. And I'll check in with the chat room every time I change the subject or whenever I think about it. And for those of you who are listening in on the replay, you can reach out to me with your questions at the KemeTones RecAb study group or the PTSS Healing PTSS with Sound event page. Those are both on Facebook. Or at cosmic@tachia.com, TCHIYA.com is my email address. And also, if you go to tachia.com, there's a place there where you can, send an email to me directly from the website. Okay, so today's chart here is in alignment with the Sankofa step for this evening, telling your story. Because when I look at this chart, let me get my glasses. When I look at this chart, I see the Sun and Mercury, that's Ra and Jehuti, in the sign of Tamut Amun, or Aries. And so, to me, that's telling me that it's time to use our creativity to express ourselves and tell our stories, because when we're telling our stories, our experiences, or when we're sharing the stories of other warriors, because we're on the front line of a spiritual and cultural battle right now. And everything that we think, say, do, wear, buy, eat, everything is it's almost like a vote or a donation or an offering to, one side or the other of this duality. We're living in a duality, and right now our culture is being misappropriated daily and many of our people are still spiritually enslaved. So now is the time to utilize this cosmic energy with the sun and Jehuti in the sign of Aries and tell your story. Use your creativity to share what's going on in your life, in your daily life, because it's really going to help someone else, especially when you're talking about dealing with trauma, because there's always a gift in adversity. And then, of course, when we take this same guidance and apply it to our nation or to people that have been affected by slavery, then it's even, you can see it's even more value to tell our stories, because there's so many people that are not aware of the long-term effects of slavery. And yes, there's people that are still living in enslavement to this day. And so it's very important that we tell our stories. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of scary to tell our story, or it's not popular to tell our story, because people don't want to hear about our experiences or our memories, because they say it'll bring them down. I remember when I first started talking about my rape story, and one of my very good friends, well, I thought she was a good friend. I guess she was a long time friend from when I was, you know, in elementary school. She was telling me that by telling my story, I was just attracting more and more situations, because if you were following me back then, I was being violated like one time after another once I came out about my rape story. And she was telling me to just stop talking about it, and then all of that stuff would stop. And we got into an argument, and I told her I didn't believe that. I told her, I think the only way we're going to change things is if we get it out and are able to talk about it and heal from the experience and release it. And if we just keep putting a Band-Aid on it or acting like there's no infection, then we're going to, you know, lose our lives sooner than later. So all that is to say that this is a very good time to develop the courage to tell your story, or to share the stories of others, to talk about what's really going on in the world, not just what's going on with, you know, who's singing at the Super Bowl or who's winning the election. We need to talk about things that are really going on. And then over here, we have the moon that has moved. It was so cloudy out here, I didn't really see the moon until last night, so I kind of missed the full moon. But the full moon was in the sign of Imhotep, and now it's in the sign of Sagittarius. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Yes, so here we have the moon in Sagittarius, sun, Mercury in Aries. So with the moon being in Sagittarius, Shasheta in Pimaeri. Shasheta is the goddess of building and construction and engineering and architecture and sacred geometry, astrology, astronomy, things like that. And so I interpret this, because with horoscopes, the idea is we're seeing ourselves as the hero in our myth. So it may not be the person who we are now, but it's the person that we're becoming. And so in this situation, we are building our personality, because the moon also is associated with our personality and our character. And so in this time of awakening, where our personality is shifting, we're what's called up-leveling. We're going to another level in our lives. And so we use this energy to help us build or co-create, you know, what we want to manifest. So Sagittarius, when you look at the constellation in the sky, it's a constellation that is towards the center of the galaxy. It's pointing, when you're looking at Scorpio, Ophiuchus, and Sagittarius, you're looking towards the center of the Milky Way. like towards a black hole. And so Sagittarius is associated with expansion, travel, wisdom, you know, the old wise elder. It's symbolized by an arrow. So like you're focused on a goal, you're going towards a goal. The constellation itself looks like a teapot pouring out the milk of the Milky Way. It's beautiful. And and then in a few days, we're going to have Mercury retrograde, and I believe it's going to be from April 28th till May 22nd. And my intention is to be writing about this soon. I have had a lot of adversity and obstacles that have kept me from posting. So I'm going to be using this energy with the Sun and Mercury in Aries to really get some writing out, get some work done. And then also we have Hedharu in Pisces, Pico Sahu, Venus in Sidereal Pisces. And that has to do with, you know, seeing the beauty in our emotions. Pisces is associated with our emotions and the flow and, you know, the metaphysical, mystical side of life. So, you know, seeing the value in our emotions and shedding tears and being open to the experiences that come when we release. Because if we don't deal with our emotions, we're not going to be able to release the trauma and the pain. So we have to sit with it. We have to remember. And one way of releasing is telling your story. So it all is connected. Okay, so here is some teachings from Dr. Joy's book, Sankofa, which means return and get it. In it, there's an examination of the historical origins of the trauma, healing of African Americans through storytelling and knowledge of family history. Additionally, the need for critical evaluation of family traditions, beliefs, and behaviors. So that last piece there is very important because, you know, we've inherited traditions and ways and habits, diet, ways of responding to situations. That's basically what I'm talking about. Cultural practices, spiritual, religious practices. And some of these practices are not in alignment with freedom. Some of these practices are in alignment with slavery and suffering and oppression and poverty. And so these are practices that no longer serve us. At one time they did, because those were the situations we were living under. Those were the conditions of our lives. But that's not how we're living now. We're up-leveling. We're going to another vibration. We're transcending. We're ascending. And so some of these things we need to shed, like a snake sheds their skin, or at the end of the day we take off our clothes and put them in the washing machine and wash them because they know they no longer serve us. So that's why these healing techniques are perfect for this, because they're here to support us when we're going through transitions and transformations. Okay, so again, Sankofa step number 3, tell your story. So this artwork here, before I move on, to my understanding, it's a bird, and she's laid an egg, and now she's taking the egg and she's replanting it in herself. I think that's how it goes. So it's just like a cycle. We just keep, feeding our culture. And the egg becomes a seed, so it can grow. Okay, so the idea is to preserve our memories for those to come. So here are some questions from the text. So this session is a little different. This one is going to be more about reflecting, and I'll post the questions so you don't have to watch the whole episode to be able to work on these questions. Okay, so how will you preserve memories for those to come? So a lot of us are preserving memories for those to come in our social media because that stuff is never going to go away, and we're actually telling our stories to Facebook and a host of other entities. So in the past, that might have been a serious obstacle, but not anymore. There's really no reason for you not to be preserving your memories today. Maybe you don't print out the photographs and put them in a photo album, but everyone has seen them. How will you now begin to tell your story? So that's one way, putting it on social media. Another way is getting involved with your creativity, with your art, with your music, drawing, sewing, cooking, whatever your gift is, you can tell your story through your art. And that's one way that you can share it with people, is by sharing your art with people. You can, if you're involved with social media, you're definitely already sharing your art that way. But these days you can get a piece of art, like let's say you draw a painting, you can get that put into fabric and make things out of it and give it away. I mean, there's so many ways you can do this. But it's important to think of how you're going to tell your story. Because when you tell your story, you're helping yourself heal, and you're also helping others heal, because they're going to hear your story and it's going to help them heal. And again, every action that we're taking in this process, we're not just doing it for ourselves, we're doing it for ourselves. And how does it go? Our family, our neighborhood, our community, our nation, and the planet. So when you're taking these steps, you're doing it, you're expanding it that way, and then also in the opposite direction, you're doing it on your cellular level, your DNA level, your genetic level, your atomic level. And when we're making changes at all of these levels, even just one person going through these changes is actually changing the molecular structure of the entire universe. So it's really a lot of power that we have by sharing our stories. So, and this is some things that I added. What will happen if your story makes others uncomfortable? That's one reason that I didn't tell my story for 30 years, is because I was afraid of how it would affect others, how it would affect the perpetrator, the oppressor. I was actually more worried about them than about myself. And that is someone who's been like completely brainwashed, and that's like, a slave who risked his life to save his slave owner from being killed by somebody who's, fighting for freedom. So we have to use our courage to tell our story, even if it's going to make someone uncomfortable. For instance, on social media, when I was posting a lot about sexual assault on campus, or when I post about my rapist, who's a very famous and well-loved individual, Neil deGrasse Tyson, whenever I post something about that, it always makes some of his fans really angry. And I had to get over that, because I have to tell my story, because there's some women or even some men who've been through a similar situation who are suffering needlessly. And when they see someone sharing their story, it helps them rise up. Now, what will happen if you do not tell your story? Well, if you do not tell your story, then the universe has to wait until the next generation for your bloodline to make this shift. Because we represent, anyone who's listening to this series represents the person in their generation, in their bloodline, in their legacy, in their lineage, that is making this transformation to make it better for future generations. So if you do not tell your story, then your lineage has to wait until the next generation. And then the whole universe has to wait until the next generation. So it's important for us all to go through, either this process or something similar to help us make the shift from victim to survivor of slavery. Because right now, most of us are still living with the whole victim experience, because it's not part of the popular culture to teach us how to make these energetic shifts. I've been learning a lot recently about how it's one thing to clear the energy, but you have to actually feel it. You have to feel the trauma. You have to feel the memory that's stored in your body. Like if it's in your experience, and your woman is trapped in your womb. It's trapped in our DNA from our ancestors. It's trapped in our blood. It's trapped in us at the molecular level. And so we have to take actions that's going to make the transformation at those levels so that it can make the shift in all the other levels: economic, health, wealth, abundance. We need to shift all of these vibrations. So if you do not tell your story, then, like I said, that just puts off the planetary shift by another generation. So it's important that anyone who hears this call immediately starts to implement this process in their own lives and the lives of their families, neighborhoods, communities, nation, and planet. Because that's the idea behind this. And so Sankofa step number 3 is about telling your story. The other 2 steps were about, getting the courage to know your story, check out your story, etc. This one is about tell your story. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat room. Not yet. Okay. Okay, so chapter 3 in the Dr. Joy's study guide is called Crimes Against Humanity. And like I said, this session is going to be a little different than the other ones because the meditation and everything is going to be more about time to reflect on some of the questions. So the purpose of this chapter, and this is from Dr. Joy's book, the purpose of this chapter is to examine past and present injustices against African Americans as crimes perpetrated and corroborated by American institutions. So the reflection questions are to be based on your personal experience, and the discussion questions are to be based on contemporary examples of discrimination and also the response. So the questions are pretty much the same, only the first round of questions is for you to reflect on your own experience. And the second round of questions is, like on society's experiences. So the purpose of this reflection is to get some more ideas on telling your story, because like I said, everybody wants us to focus on just the pretty, beautiful flowers. But we also, if you want to have a beautiful garden, you have to have compost. You have to have really rich soil, and you have to have really strong roots. And so before we can have this beautiful blossoming, we have to really go back and get these stories. We have to go into our memories, our meditations. We got to use our meditations to manifest what we want. It's one thing to just get into a state of peace, but now we have to use our meditation space to create, what it is that we want to manifest. We want to step into our vision. We want to get our vision so clear that the only thing left for us to do is to just step into it. So that is the idea behind this this session. Okay, so I'd like you to get into a comfortable position. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to, but it's kind of like a meditative question reflection. And I forgot to bring a pen over here. So, and the idea is it's going to activate your creativity somehow and give you some ideas on expressing some of these feelings and emotions that we don't really express. I mean, it's good to remain positive, but like I say, if you have an infection, if you don't get out every bit of the infection, it's never really going to go away. It's just going to stay like a low-grade infection. You won't like be feverish and vomiting and stuff like that, but you'll have a low-grade infection. All right. So I want you to just, comfortable, just breathing in, breathing out. Some deep breathing right now. Allowing your abdomen to expand as you inhale, and as you exhale, contract till it's almost touching your spine. Again, inhale. And exhale. And as I ask you these questions, even more than speaking out your answer, I want you to get a clear vision. I want the answer to manifest in your mind's eye so that you don't even have to say it. You see it so clearly that maybe I can see it or I can feel what you're seeing in your mind's eye. And I'm going to be going through the same thing. Okay, first question. What have you been taught about African American history by your family? Just let it come into your mind. Something your family taught you about African American history, or maybe you see yourself sitting, talking to your family about the history of your people when you were young. Identify specific events experienced by members of your family that are reflective of crimes against them as a direct result of their ethnicity or physical characteristics. In other words, was there someone in your family that was affected by a crime of humanity? Any freedom fighters in your families? Any marchers? What comes to your mind's eye? How did these events affect you emotionally? How did these events affect your family? How does awareness of contemporary incidents involving race, such as Hurricane Katrina, Virginia 6, and Trayvon Martin, affect you? How does this awareness make you feel? How does your awareness of daily racial injustices as experienced by you, your family, and your peer group affect you? What are some of the things you can do to mitigate the effects of crimes of injustice that are occurring today and may occur in the future? Okay, return to normal consciousness. So I had a comment to make about this. First of all, I don't remember my family teaching me anything about African American history. I didn't get taught about it until I was in college. And even though my father was involved with the Black Panthers, I never was aware of anything that happened. I was really sheltered. My family didn't tell me anything. I remember when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I think at that point I began to shut down. I was already traumatized by some other things. And my family was so fragmented that I have no idea how these events affected my family. So in my case, this is all like a void. And I'm looking forward to spending time in my meditation to get some answers. Because the idea is we're going to ask our higher self these questions. You're going to give yourself some time to write out the answers. And then maybe, what happens with me usually is when I go back to look at my notes, there'll be a song. There'll be a brand new song waiting for me. And so the idea is we're going to write out our answers, whatever comes to our mind's eye, whatever came to your mind during this little session or what's going to come, we have some more time, and see what comes out. Maybe it's a painting or a new design for a sweatshirt or a logo or a recipe or a dance or a screenplay. Who knows what it's going to be? But the idea is to waken something inside of us that'll trigger our creativity, so we'll tell our story. And then about awareness of contemporary incidents and awareness of daily racial injustices. When I was younger, when there was a lot of things going on in the days of my youth, we didn't have internet and cell phones. So there was probably more things going on. I just wasn't aware of them. And the news, I don't know if it was as controlled back then as it is now. But those are some things that came to my mind, is the importance of social media. And, even though there are things that are not so good for our environment and for our health, they have allowed us to be more aware of things going on around the world. So, we have to find the good in everything, or the gift in the adversity, and use it to our benefit. And then some of the things we can do to mitigate the effects of crimes of injustice. Well, if you're watching this series, you're already doing things to mitigate the effects. So I think what we can do is just apply these teachings and keep working on ourselves and working on others. Okay. And now the second set of questions is crimes against humanity discussion questions, and these relate to your community and the nation. Again, so let's return to that meditative state where we're seated calmly and quietly, and we're breathing, inhaling and exhaling. You're just going to gently close your eyes. And again, just, the first thing that comes into your mind's eye, later on you have some more time to work on it, or you'll do this exercise again and that'll expand. It's about expanding. It's about having the courage to tell our story, use our creativity. How does this awareness of the historical crimes against humanity, such as those described in Chapter 3, affect families and communities today? How does awareness of contemporary incidents involving race, such as Hurricane Katrina, the Gen 6, and Trayvon Martin, affect families and communities today? How does your awareness of daily racial injustices affect you, your family, and your peer groups, families, and communities today? How does the awareness of these crimes affect the broader society? What role do institutions play in the perpetration or condoning of these crimes? Institutions such as law enforcement, education, banking, etc. And finally, what are some of the things families and communities can do to mitigate the effects of the injustices that are occurring today and may occur in the future? All right, so I have some of my comments on these. I think the awareness of these crimes against humanity, in some ways, it brings us closer together because it's something that we can all identify with and take action together, even though we're all like isolated on our computers. You know, we're all connected, and we can organize things easier and, you know, keep up with things better. However, I also feel like this awareness of the daily injustices and the contemporary incidents and the awareness of these crimes, it jades us. We're like, oh, somebody else got killed today. Oh, another disaster. Oh, da-da-da-da-da, you know. Oh, another person got killed. Oh, another person got shot. Oh, another person got raped. And so, in a way, even though we know about it more, we know more about these incidents, we don't really do anything. We feel helpless and powerless, and we have to find a way to turn this around and empower us. You know, we need to flip the script and flip the switch and turn this around, because these injustices are not going to stop until we change how we address them, how we react to them, how we respond to them. You know, marches doesn't work like it used to. My personal opinion is we have to do something financial, like stop buying stuff, do without stuff. That's one of the kind of changes that we need to make. And there's people that are afraid to make those changes. Those are big changes. What do you mean not go and get my organic chocolate candy bar every day or whatever? You know, those are conveniences. So I think that, and one, it's like a double-edged sword. Yes, we're more aware and we're closer and more connected on these atrocities, but on the other hand, it's happened so much, we're not doing anything. There's nothing we can do, or we think there's nothing we can do. And then this is the good one. What role do institutions play in perpetration and condoning? Well, they own social media and everything, so they're making money off of all of it. They perpetuate it, they promote it, they condone it, and they make money off of it, and then they inspire other people to do the same. So the institutions they're cleaning up, making lots of money. That's the role they play. And what are some of the things that families and communities can do to mitigate the effects? We need to change our traditions, diets, ways, education, health, all these things. And people have been talking about how it's going to take time, it's going to take time, it's going to take time. The time has passed. And now it's like, what do they say? If your arm is infected and it has to be removed, do you want it cut off fast, or do you want it to just rot away until it gets so painful it just falls off, but it's slow, you know, and then they have to cut it off, you know? You want it now or later, fast or slow, painful. You just do it now and make the changes now, because what's ahead is not pretty. It's not pretty. So that's my commentary. Okay, so let's see, are there any questions or comments? If there's any questions or comments, just the chat room or you could just speak out. I don't have the lines muted or anything. Okay, so now we're going to go into the KemeTones applications based on the horoscope reading this morning, reading for this evening, excuse me. So we have, and for some reason my website is not working right now. The Mercury retrograde must have hit it early. And so, but I have the information here on the this presentation, so I don't have to switch back to the other screen. So that's, see, there's always a gift and adversity. It's better this way. I hadn't done it this way before. Okay, so for telling our story, and part of our story is painful. Yes, part of our story is happy and victorious and glorious and profound. And yet there's a large part of this story from slavery times and oppression that is sad. And it's painful to share and it's scary to share. So the Accutonics tuning forks we're going to be working with tonight is the Sedna fork. The Sedna fork is associated with the comet Sedna, and her cultural myth is based on the Inuit or the Alaskan natives culture. Long story short, it was time for her to get married, and she didn't want to marry the guy her dad wanted her to marry. She married somebody else, and then this made her dad angry when her husband took her to his home. He turned out to be like a monster bird, and he lived in a nest, and she had to live there, and he was not nice to her. He was very abusive, and so she escaped, and it turns out her dad was looking for her the same day she was escaping, so she got to get in his boat and sail away, but the monster found him, and the dad was scared, so he threw his daughter over the boat into the water, and she was clasping onto the boat with her hands, and the dad just cut off her hands, cut off her fingers, whatever, and her fingers fell into the water and became the sea creatures, and she became the goddess of the sea. And at KemeTones, she's associated with trauma, with expressing sad stories. So the first part of our treatment is going to be with storehouse points, the throat, the heart, and the womb chakra, the womb aritu. And the second part will be with the meridians, again with Sedna, in the kidneys. And I've decided to go tonight with the Yang Wei and the Yang Kiao because we're dealing with Ra, Jehuti, and Tammuz Amun. There's all really masculine energies. So I'm just going to briefly move over into the other studio, which is just the other side of the desk. It's really funny. I don't know why I do that, but that's what I do. Okay, and then I will bring a little camera so you can watch the treatment. What is going on here? Open the chat. There's the camera. All right. There we go. And I don't know if this is going to cooperate. How do I do that? Nope. Okay. Oops. Okay. All right. So we are in the sound healing room. I have my activator belt. It's called an activator. So I'm not hitting my leg. It's a piece of rubber. And then we're going to start with the grounding forks on the ankles, which is awesome because we're dealing with the kidney points today. I mean the bladder, excuse me. I guess we're dealing with the kidney and the bladder, so I was right. And then my womb chakra. So as I'm doing this treatment for all of you listening and everyone on the planet. Everyone's getting a cosmic tune-up right now. At some level, a cellular level, atomic level, intergenerational level, molecular level. And the heart chakra. All right. Let's go back to this other one. Okay. Oops. Let's go. All right. So this part of the treatment is dealing with the chakras, and it's just been instructed to work with Sedna. So we have Sedna, and then we also have the moon. What's some other things we can work with? So first we're going to deal with our courage to tell our story. So I'm just going to be working with these works here. And of course the throat chakra. And as I always say, even if you don't have the tuning forks, you know you can still do these treatments by using your intention. You can use crystals. You can use whatever you have. And then also the lung points for expressing grief, sadness. And then the storehouse point. I'm going to call this Asar, because that's what this reminds me of. Reminds me of Asar. Opening up everything, that's all the goodness that's stored for you. All right? And then more courage for communication. Wait. Communication. So that one was Ra and Tammuz Amun. Now I'm going to do Jehuti and Tammuz Amun. Same thing. Courage to tell your story. Alright. Now we're going to deal with Sedna. Let's do the Sedna. I guess the moon, yeah, Sedna and the moon. Okay. The moon is in Sagittarius. Anyway. So I'm doing my womb area right now. And then you have, your womb is internal, so you should still do your creativity chakra. Working on your internal energetic womb. Heart. Throat. This one is vibrating. I need to get it tuned up. This side. Cranial. Here's the other one. All right. Anything else? That one. Throat, heart, warm, oh, storehouse. Okay, I didn't do storehouse. Let's do the celestial storehouse. Right now. Oops, that's the camera. Okay. Yeah, we got to express our grief, right? Grief. Our storehouse. With all the goodness that's given for us, telling our story. All right. In the next section, again focusing on sedna, the kidneys, and these extraordinary vessels. Oh man, good morning. Yeah, okay. So then we have our kidneys points. We've done quite a bit of work on kidneys with the other sessions, so I'm going to go ahead and now I did these kidney points here, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the extraordinary vessels, which I chose for today, Yang Kiao Mei and Yang Wei. Right? Yeah. Okay. Move this chart started. And I'll read the description. Yang Wei. Okay, this one is the Yang Wei. And it's interesting because it kind of goes along with the kidney point. Not exactly, but on the side. And then the other one, this one, interesting because it goes along the head, and the kidney point also goes along there. And so, glasses. So the Yang Wei is interesting because that's what's called a Xiao Yang pattern for autoimmune disorders, pathogen stuck in the body, cold ended, pathogen pushed out. Like you got rid of the cold, most of it, but you still have a nagging cough. Like there's something that's still lingering, even though you pretty much over it. There's still a tiny bit left, and that's kind of how this energetic pattern from the PTSS is. You know, we don't have chains around our ankles or our legs anymore, but we're still living in chains. They're energetic chains. Like a lot of it is just patterns and habits. So this one will be good to use to help get rid of that lingering energy from PTSS. It's called the Xiao Yang Hotel, where it lies dormant, gaining strength and waits for opportunity. Shows up when the host becomes weak. Okay? We're going to do the Xiao Yang Wei pattern and the Yang Kiao Mei. Those are the ones, maybe one for Yang Kiao Mei. Yang Kiao Mei. Sleep disturbances, atrophy of inner leg, dry eyes, edginess from being on the computer, too much TV, pain behind the eye, close fear from deep-seated fear of abandonment, depression, introvert, isolation. Use the moons and the earth day fifth for depression. So that's just an example for that. We're going to stick with our guidance for today, which is with Sedna and the Sun, Mars, and Mercury. Okay. start with the Yang Kiao Mei. Alright, so you put, just get your Chinese medicine charts, and you're going to go, this is the way the energy flows. You just put them on these points here, one on the ankle, and the other one on the finger, pinky finger. Okay, there we go. And again, it's kind of complicated doing it self-care, but it can be done. Well, right now, I've never tried this one before. Okay, so I'm obviously not going to be able to show you this, but I'm doing it. No, this is more like a yoga posture. I'm trying to do it like that. And then the other one, the Yang Wei. There we go. Yang Wei. We're going to do on the other opposite side. So you do it from, put the hand on the left side, and you're going to do, put the hand or hand or foot on the right side. So it's hand and foot. This is a little easier to show. Try that one. Right. And I also suggest UV. UB 62 and small intestine 3. So let's see what those are. 62 is on the ankle. Small intestine 3. Okay. Put small intestine. Oh yes, I'm the pinky. So those are going to be kind of difficult. Let's see what I can do. Yes, yeah, sometimes you just really need a practitioner. Yeah, that's pretty close. Huh. Never done this combination before. Okay. All right. And then we'll close it up with some high frequency. Fill it up. This is the high frequency for segment. I think I need some grounding. All right. That was very exciting. All right. Okay, so more things coming to my mind about step 3 and telling your story, telling our story, and the kidneys. Since we have a little bit of time here, I want to talk a little bit more about the kidneys. The kidney point is the point that I use for my creativity chakra. You know, it's that point. It's like 4-finger width below the belly button. And they say that our DNA code is stored there, all our memories, everything that's happened to us, and then there's also like an area in our womb, so everything that's happened to us, and our bloodline is stored there, our history. And the information is stored in the water. And the sound healing is so effective on the water and the flow of the water. Sedna is the goddess of the ocean. You know, everything just makes so much sense when you just step back and look at it. So the thing about the kidneys also is the kidneys are connected to the ear because they kind of look like ears, or ears kind of look like kidneys. but also our ability to hear and to listen to other people telling the story, or our ability to hear the truth, accept the truth. You know, all of these issues are connected with Sankofa step number 3, which is tell your story, tell our story. It's just about the energy stored in the water. And then if you've taken any classes or sounding classes or the Cosmic Sound Healing video series, we talk about Dr. Emoto's work and the effect on the water crystals. He did this experiment. He did this experiment with water, and he took glasses of water, and in each glass of water he put words like "I love you," "You're beautiful," happiness, or in some water samples he took just straight from the polluted water source, and then some after he prayed over it, and then also some water samples where the water had words on it like "I hate you," "You're ugly," "You're stupid," and then he took a sample of the water from each one of these little jars and froze the sample and looked at it under a microscope. And the water samples that had been given a positive blessings or positive, words were aligned and beautiful like snowflakes. And the ones with the negative messages or the polluted sources, they were deformed. They were like, and that experiment showed the effect that words or thoughts or vibrations can have on water. Then there's the thing about cymatics, where you get a piece of metal and put sand or water or magnetic files on it, and then you play music and attach electrode or whatever to the plate, to the speaker, to the music source, and a pattern will form from the sound. The sound waves will form a structure. So that is another reason why the sound healing is really effective when we're talking about healing from trauma, healing from slavery, and making changes in our lives, because we represent the generation in our lineage that is making these changes. So we need these type of healing techniques to help support us while we're making the changes. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Yeah. Having a lot of challenges with these buttons. Okay, so as you tell your story, our story, through your art and your creative expressions, you heal your family, your neighborhood, community, nation, and the entire planet, even the entire universe, on all levels, from cellular, atomic, nuclear, genetic, DNA, all the way up to galactic. It will take great courage to fully express the creativity and the truth of the divine. People will not always want to hear what you have to say, however, it must be expressed. And it's not very popular right now, but it still needs to be expressed. And so now we're at the part where we talk about some of the different offerings from KemeTones that can help support people during these changes. We have the KemeTones offerings, which are different protocols for a variety of issues caused by trauma, especially post-traumatic stress syndrome and rape. We have chakra clearing, and we have protocols for those with a false sense of disconnect from nature and the divine. And something that's not on here, you can also come out here for a VIP weekend or overnight stay, and you'll have like a long treatment each day you're here, and we go for hikes in the country, and you have, all organic vegan meals or raw meals if you request, or, we'll spend time in the garden, the medicine wheel, and so that's another way that you can experience KemeTones. And I didn't do any chanting this evening. We did more time with the reflections, and I will post those questions from Dr. Joy's book in our discussion group. But if you've been on some of the other calls or webinars, some of the chants that I present are on a CD that's available as a download at tachia.bandcamp.com/releases. This is the Blue Lotus Speaks Volume 1, Onto the Opening. And it's a collection of Kemetic devotional chants and hymns. And at the website, you can listen free for the first 2 or 3 times, and then you're expected to make an offering or donation. And when you listen to the whole collection, you're actually going through a ritual or a ceremony, a prayer service, a devotional service. And then for those of you interested in working with me on a deeper level, we have KemeTones Healing Packages, the Awakening Series, which comes with 3, 5, or 7 treatments. And then we also have packages that are connected with how-to-scopes. And if you're interested in that, you contact me at cosmic@tachia.com or anywhere on social media. And so, yes, so that is the presentation for this evening. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to experience this protocol being developed. As I said before, since I've been doing this work on myself, I have noticed lots of shifts and changes. And this is a way for me to document, what I did, what I worked on, because it's here on this video, and I'm taking notes in my journal. And my next step is to apply this protocol to a group of people, and I'm going to be starting with the island of Jamaica. I'm going to be going back there in a few months, and next year in 2017 I'm going to be living there part of the year, and I'm going to be doing a lot of investigation to see if we can see some sort of effect in the community there. I'm excited because it's a community that's like self-contained. It's not like here in the States where I have some people in California, some people in Chicago, some people, da-da-da. There, everybody's going to be in one area, and it's going to be really exciting to see the effect. I'm looking forward to seeing it like a wave or a ripple effect. And so that is what I have for you tonight. I hope the questions were reflective for you and that they inspire you to create some sort of art that expresses how you feel about these crimes against humanity and the trauma that we have survived. We're survivors. We're not victims. We're survivors. I know personally I was writing a song called Black Lives Matter, but after so much came out about that, I'm just going to focus on the words of the song, which is a combination of words from Martin Luther King and Louis Farrakhan about someone's got to pay. That we must find a way to redistribute the pain. So I'm going to be working on that, and then I'm also working on a song about riding the waves, how, things come up, positive things come up, and then negative things can take us down. But the most important thing is to just stay even and ride the wave of life. So that's the offering for this evening. Once again, thank you so much for being here. And we will continue with step 4 next week. We'll return to our normal session with the chanting and meditation at the end, but this time was more about the reflections to the questions. And I wish you peace and love, Ankh, Uja Seneb, and Hatep. Thank you. If you have any questions before I sign off, okay, great. So yeah, leave the questions in the chat room, the discussion room. Thank you.